fourth is a Pink Panther Broadway show. It was to be an adaptation of not only the original Pink Panther, but A Shot in the Dark, which borrowed its title and premise from the 1962 Broadway play of the same name, The Idiot. The show was written by Blake Edwards, his son Jeffrey, and Leslie Bricusse. It was just after his stage adaptation of Victor Victoria was a huge success that Blake decided to mine the gold in some of his older projects, such as this. He collaborated with Leslie Bricusse on the new musical for MGM's onstage division, headed by Darcy Dunkirk, which would have featured 13 new songs, as well as words to Henry Mancini's famed Pink Panther theme. The project was ultimately unproduced, as his wife, Julie Andrews, suffered from throat problems, which stopped Blake's foray onto Broadway. A screenplay for the musical was sold, but supposedly it's in the hands of an unknown collector, and as is the case, it's most likely lost media. Last but definitely not least is Birth of the Pink Panther, which would eventually become the Steve Martin Tubular remake. It was just after the initial agreement made with MGM in 1997 that a new Pink Panther film was set to be made without Blake Edwards' involvement. The studio approached Robin Williams and Jim Carrey to star, but neither were interested. The studio also began canvassing directors such as Ivan Reitman, Frank Oz, and Mike Nicholas. In the year 2000, Ivan Reitman was picked to direct, with Kevin Spacey attached to star, as the same with the aforementioned musical. But Spacey got jumpy when MGM announced his involvement. Mike Myers was then tapped in to play Clouseau. The film was set for a December release in 2002, but nothing came of which. The release was then shifted to 2003. About the time Mike Myers withdrew from the project, MGM was then in talks with Dana Carvey about playing Clouseau. Ivan Reitman had also considered having Clouseau being cast with an African American, one being Martin Lawrence, and another being Chris Tucker, who would also star alongside Jackie Chan. One credible source showed that MGM was preparing to shoot Birth, which would star the two, that fall for a 2004 release, with Rush Hour 3, a Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan vehicle, being pushed until 2005 to allow Tucker and Chan to work with Ivan Reitman on the long-delayed relaunch of the series. But again, nothing came of which. It wasn't until November of 2003 when MGM publicly announced that Birth would be attaching a contemporary creative team and that production would begin in the spring of 2004. The announcement named MGM executives and framed the film as a priority franchise project, into which it would be a fresh start for the series rather than an in-universe continuation. There's not much that could really say about the script, since details are also skimp, but supposedly the plot would revolve around a debt-ridden fashion designer and his supermodel girlfriend stealing the diamond, and the Sultan of Lugash calling upon Clouseau to retrieve it again. The Sultan of Lugash would end up being the villain, who is also into drug running and white slavery. There was also rumors of Herbert Lum returning, but either of which weren't confirmed. And the script also had one early element to where essentially Dreyfuss would see the animated Pink Panther running around as part of his hallucinations. Filming eventually started with Steve Martin in the role of Inspector Clouseau, and with Sean Levy as director. It was originally scheduled to be released in August of 2005, but Sony was dissatisfied with the original film and its raunchy tone, in which they enforced to reshoot and re-edit the film in order to make it more family-friendly. The Pink Panther was eventually released in February of 2006 and went on to make $164 million against its $80 million budget. They rushed a sequel, and I'm pretty sure you can guess as to how things turned out for there. There's really not much else surrounding Birth of the Pink Panther other than the final release of the 2006 remake was completely different to the layout of what was to be Birth of the Pink Panther. So as far as these unrealized Pink Panther ideas are concerned, this is all there is. In the words of Guy Gabois, I would of course tell you more, but I think it'd be safer for you if I did not. On the cusp of researching these, I know for a fact of a few fan Pink Panther productions I could be worthy of talking about since no one else does. Not my own, which you could check out personally. I'll put the links below. But I'm talking about ones that used to be up on YouTube, but unrealized. Something like Shadow of the Pink Panther, which is a love letter to these films. It's kind of more in line with something like Return of the Pink Panther, but, I mean, I take quality over quantity. So all in all, which one of these unrealized ideas was your favorite? Post a comment down below. Tell me what you think. And leave me some more suggestions if you can for any future film deep dives or unrealized ideas. I know I have a couple other ones that come to mind, but that'll just depend on if any of you are interested. I'll post a poll anyway. Thanks for watching. Please give me the clout. I need it.